24 Democratic members of Congress have now said they will not attend the inauguration over Mr. Trump's tweets about Congressman Lewis. I want to bring in Democratic strategist Jamal Simmons and Bruce LeVell, who is executive director of the National Diversity Coalition for Donald Trump. Say, good to see you both. Jamal, let me start with you, because there does appear to be a trend, a longstanding trend about Twitter being sort of the communications device of choice for Donald Trump. The current Secretary of Labor, Tom Perez, said going tweet to tweet with Mr. Trump is like going to a knife fight with a spoon. So as a Democratic strategist, how do you work this?
Well, I think we have to sort of get over the outrage of the day, because if everything is outrageous, then nothing becomes an outrage. So Democrats have to begin to focus on the things that are incredibly important. So one of the things that I think about with this thing with John Lewis, Congressman John Lewis, is on one hand, you've got Congressman John Lewis speaking up and saying that he doesn't think Donald Trump is legitimate. On the other hand, Donald Trump appointed Jeff Sessions to be Attorney General, and we're not talking about that because we're talking about John Lewis. And Jeff Sessions is someone who has stood against all the things that John Lewis fought his entire life. Today's Martin Luther King Day.
So you're saying Democrats are falling for his diversionary tactics?
They're falling for those tactics, and on a day like Martin Luther King Day, we should be talking about an Attorney General nominee who does not want to expand the rights of Americans to participate in American society, and we've got to get somebody who will live up to those things.
One of the things, Bruce, that the president-elect has said quite openly when he's been involved in these controversies is, you know, that people must agree with him. He hasn't paid a price for it. He talks about standing in the middle of Fifth Avenue and shooting someone and nobody cares. But his approval rating, his pre-inaugural approval, is way below the halfway mark. And when you look at Gallup showing 40% approval, in comparison, Obama had 78%, George W. Bush 62%, Bill Clinton 66%. Should that be a warning to the president-elect to stop, as Bill Kristol put it, popping off that way?
Well, no, I disagree, and I'm going to tell you why, Chris. And by the way, thanks for having me, and happy MLK Day here in Atlanta.
Happy MLK Day.
Thank you. Well, here's the deal. President-elect Trump is, once again, you can't take a traditional, old-school, generational playbook and try to apply it even now and on during his administration. This polls, you know what they are. There's still a silent majority that are extremely favorable for President-elect Trump and his administration. So I would say it's unfair to try to throw opponents who has a low approval rating, where I totally disagree, because you can't take, like I said, historical, old-school playbooks and apply them to this new administration.
Yeah, I would agree with that, but isn't an insult, whether it's a full-length book or it's a tweet of 140 characters?
Well, you know, and like the gentleman said earlier about Representative Lewis, you know, I live here in Atlanta. I know John Lewis well. He's a great man. My uncles marched with him in the civil rights movement. I'm very well aware of that. But I will tell you this, from a constituent, a voter, I vote my congressperson, male or female, to Congress to fight for my district, to bring jobs, to help my constituency. I don't want my congressman, Republican or Democrat, to get in a fighting match with the incoming president. I want a graceful transfer of power. And the other thing, too, in relation to that, to go on prime time and meet the press, to say that there's a Russian conspiracy on the election is totally, totally false. Meaning, and here's the reason why, because you can't sit here and say that Russia was part of this or whoever. I know about the IT world, the cyber. I have friends who own cyber businesses, and I will tell you this, that we're not really sure. So to paint a brush to say that the Russians were part of it is totally false.
That's not really true.
And out of order.
You don't actually believe that. You've got all these intelligence agencies that are saying that this is something that's occurred. You've got all these intelligence agencies that are saying this is something that's occurred. You got the President of the United States, who just this weekend went after one of our allies in Germany and said that he would give Putin on the same category, the same shelf with Angela Merkel, who has been our ally for the last 60 years. So I don't understand how this administration could and how Republicans even could stomach the fact that somebody's going to come up and defend Russia.
One of the things that is clear when and you talk about this new media age, and things move so fast in this 24-hour cable cycle, that there's the importance of checking the facts. It has maybe never been more critical, and yet I have not heard a Trump official deny that they're talking about moving the press corps out of the West Wing. And I want to show you how a fictional White House staffer dealt with that same issue. Of course, this is an episode of the West Wing.
Hey.
You got my note.
About moving the press room to the OEOB. I did.
And?
Don't let anyone ever know know that you wrote it, and don't ever mention it again under any circumstances.
Moving the press room?
See what you did?
CJ.
You mentioned it.
Look.
You did it again.
No, I didn't.
You were about to.
Just the OEOB just across the street. We can get much-needed office space, and we can put a little physical distance between the press and the president, and we can put them just across the street in the state-of-the-art facility.
By state-of-the-art, you mean?
A room with electricity.
The press doesn't want physical distance from the president, and the American people would prefer the president didn't have physical distance from the press.
CJ.
We can't exile the press.
The room I'm talking about is 100 yards from where we're standing.
It sends a signal we're trying to hide things from them.
Bruce, is that a valid point, fictional character or not?
I don't believe in that. Here's the deal, Chris. One thing I have to say, I'm 52 years old. I've been involved in the process, all the way back when I was 18 stuffing envelopes for Ronald Reagan volunteering. I am extremely excited and elated. One of the things, too, here is the fact that the transparency that the President-elect Trump administration is going to bring to the American people, that's not going to slow down. Whether they're down the hall, down the street, wherever they're going to be, there will be absolutely breathtaking, awesome transparency as it relates to, communicating to the American people, unlike any president has ever done. So I'm extremely excited. I'm also, excuse me, can I finish this? Also, the fact that we, our communications team, when we were working with the coalition, with the campaign, Sean Spicer, Brian Lanza, Kellyanne Conway, it's one of the best communications teams I have ever witnessed and seen in my life. I am so elated that he is in that position, that President-elect Trump has him there with Rance Priebus. This is going to be a very, very transparent, very open dialogue with the American people, and I am very happy about that.
Here's the truth. The president-elect has not given us his tax returns when he promised to do so. He has not had a press conference in a long time. He has not been transparent. And I was in the Clinton administration at the time when George Stephanopoulos and others tried to close the door between the White House press area and the staff. This is not partisan. When the Obama administration went after Fox News and they got brushed back, you cannot go after reporters this way and be president of the United States. We have freedom of the press and the First Amendment.
I just want to interrupt you for a second because there we go. Martin Luther King the third, MLK Jr.'s son, oldest son, and Donald Trump, the president-elect, who just had a meeting. We're hoping to hear now from MLK III, who, by the way, over the weekend, as we're seeing Donald Trump go back, I believe, into the elevators, there the doors go. Over the weekend, he had an op-ed in the Washington Post where he talked about wanting voter ID, free voter ID for all. We assume that was part of the conversation that they had. Let's see if he's going to come over to the cameras and make some comments. He seems to be just heading out. Looks like he's going to be heading out. But this is one way. We will say this. When people come and go, they have the opportunity, if they want to talk to the press. Having said that, this is something that obviously is of great concern to the White House press corps. But are we navel-gazing, those of us who have worked over there at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue? Do the American people care about this?
I think, yes, the press is navel-gazing, and yes, it's incredibly important. Both of those things are true at the same time. You need to have a press corps that's involved and close enough to the action to be able to follow it and hold the administration accountable.
All right. Well, thank you both. Are we actually hearing now from MLK III? Okay. All right. Well, thank you both. Bruce, Jamal, good to see both of you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah. And we want to see what you're saying about our Microsoft Pulse question.